My name is Scott Ritter. Allow me to introduce myself for those who don't know me. I'm a former United States Marine Corps intelligence officer. I participated in Operation Desert Storm and served as the Chief Weapons Inspector for the United Nations in Iraq. My main interests are international relations and armed conflicts in different parts of the world. Mr. President, there have been numerous publications about you, but everything seems to disappear from the web. Your image is carefully managed and not without reason.
You have had many film roles. Which one is your favorite? I would say that Servant of the People is probably my favorite.
The year is 2015. It's the premiere of the first season of Servant of the People series. According to the credits, the producer was Volodymyr Zelensky. In reality, he wasn't producing it by himself. Instead, his promotion had begun. No wonder such a role became one of his favorites. Zelensky portrayed the character Vasily Goluborodko, a school history teacher who becomes the president of Ukraine.
I want to compare that situation to situation where, for example, you come into the plane, you boarding, and you take in your seat, and now you see the man who look like a pilot, who dressed like a pilot, who speak like a pilot, greeting passengers, but who is not a pilot at all, who is an actor, who played a pilot in response for your life.
To all the people who want to quarrel with us, to divide our country, to separate us by color, by language, and so on. To all of you, I can't speak for myself, as I am a person of culture, so let one of the characters familiar to everyone, Vasily Goluborodko, say it. And all the rest of you, villains, go to hell.
A carefully prepared operation by one of the intelligence services, or all of the intelligence services in the United States and in NATO, to make sure that their guy is in charge and will do what they tell him to do, rather than somebody who has ideas of his own.
A carefully prepared operation by one of the intelligence agencies. What a revelation. Michael, thank you for this.
If people in the East and Crimea want to speak Russian, let them. Leave them alone. Provide them with the opportunity to speak Russian on a legal basis. Language should never divide our home country.
2020, Zelensky made all schools in Ukraine Ukrainian language only.
Today, another step has been taken to strengthen the spiritual independence of our state and protect our society from old and cynical Moscow manipulations with religion. Ukraine is a territory of the greatest religious freedom in our part of Europe. I want to remove Lenin and instead put someone who will be admired by everyone in the country. It's called literary characters, definitely not politicians. What's stopping you? Bulgakov? Ukrainian? Ukrainian. If you want to rub it into your neighbor, put up Gogol.
And his memorial plaque was removed from the wall of a university in Kyiv. Writer Mykola Oleksiyovych, who apparently came from Ukraine, didn't satisfy him either. Scientist Mikhail Lomonosov, writer Maxim Gorky, and finally, Alexander Pushkin. The great writer was the one who offended Ukrainian authorities the most.
I personally stand for freedom of speech, and you know that very well. I will never in my life shut down any channels. I don't have the right. I don't have the authority.
On February 3rd, 2021, 3 Ukrainian television channels, ZIK, News 1, and 112 Ukraine, were shut down.
Certain political parties' activities are suspended at the time of martial law.
On March 20th, 2022, the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, under Zelensky's orders, banned 11 opposition parties. No one in Ukraine objected to the funeral of freedom of speech. Those who could have objected were either killed, arrested, or fled the country.
This is where I live. Is this the president's bed? Were you here on the 24th? I was. Well, we also went down to the bomb shelter. So this is where I live. Well, could you say this is your home?
Взагалі, це можна сказати ваш дім. Цей кабінет.
It's my home. I've lived here for a year.
А банковый есть абсолютно.
There is a well-equipped bomb shelter on Bankova Street.
Советское время. Тогда,
It was
когда
built during the Soviet era when the Soviet Union faced a real nuclear threat.
атомный войны
These are long-term facilities that allowed every member of the apparatus to function,
аппарату всему.
not just one individual. So there are no small rooms there, of course. Well, anything can be staged.
Lines, the unshaven look, the sunken face due to sleepless nights of hard work. However, narcologists would argue all the signs of cocaine abuse are evident. Constant nose sniffing and inappropriate reaction.
All of these technological possibilities can change public life.
A desperate housewife alongside her brave hero husband. Zelensky, as usual, looks unshaven and stern. His military style complements his wife's luxurious outfits. Take note of how well she wears the $7,900 Louis Vuitton coat. The extras are wearing uniforms from the military brand 5.11 Multicam. The average cost is about $8,000. The very famous and expensive American photographer, Annie Leibovitz, did the photo shoot. In the past, she worked with John Lennon and Demi Moore. The Guardian named Ukraine the most corrupt country in Europe. You might say, that was before Zelensky. What about 2023? Well, nothing has changed. Firstly, a villa in Miami for himself, worth $34 million. I've been to Florida and can understand the taste of the president of Ukraine. Secondly, a house in Israel for his parents on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea. It's worth $8 million. Europe, Zelensky prefers Italy. Tuscany, the best wines. By the way, one of the most expensive resorts in the country, Forte del Marbi. Houses here are worth their weight in gold. In 2017, together with his wife, he bought a villa 600 meters from the sea. According to the declaration, it was worth about $3.8 million at that time. Is that all? Not at all. From the south, we moved north, not to Siberia, of course, but to London, Old Center, legendary Baker Street, opposite the Sherlock Holmes Museum. There's another Zelensky residence, an apartment worth $3 million. Why? Probably to stay while visiting his owners with a report. More on that later. Apparently, the real estate was purchased through the company of his business partner, Sergei Sheffer. That's why he's called Zelensky's personal wallet in Ukraine. I almost forgot about real estate. Georgia, not the state, the country. A new multi-story apart hotel in the city of Batumi. It's also a seaside resort. Apartments are under renovation, but an expensive finish, panoramic windows, and views in the city and the mountains. Hint that it was built for well-to-do people. At least 5 apartments here belong to Zelensky. Finally, the settlement of Levadia, an elite residential complex emperor.
Здесь открывается шикарный вид на дом.
Look, a magnificent view of Zelensky's house opens up.
Вот он.
Here it is, a seashore over there.
Берег.
Lions, wide staircases, and columns. On the roof, there's a luxurious terrace, a pool, and a wonderful sea view. But guys, it's Crimea. Crimea, which is currently under Russian control. Zelensky made a mistake here, and the Russians will surely figure out how to use it to their advantage. Zelensky's penthouse was purchased here in 2013, right before the so-called Crimean Spring. Nowadays, such a property could be worth about $1 million. However, a different amount is stated in his declaration. 1,384,000 hryvnias, or about $164,000. Well, we don't even need to mention the real estate in Kyiv or the official residence of the head of the republic in Koncha-Zaspa. Even without those, it's quite a collection of villas, houses, and apartments. However, the Ukrainian president is in no rush to give them to children, at least not to other people's children.
Are you planning to use the state residences? Guys, let some kids live in these residences. Like some vacation camps for people who really need it.
Іноземці та компанії, яких мають
Foreigners and companies with foreign founders
отримують право купувати українські землі
will be able to purchase Ukrainian land
тільки у випадку.
only if the consent of the Ukrainian people is granted through an all-Ukrainian referendum.
На всеукраїнському референдумі.
The BlackRock company has the greatest global influence in society, as it controls almost all banks. It's impossible to even imagine the extent of their assets and the influence they have, both on German and Ukrainian politics.
December 2019, a joint conference following the Normandy format meeting.
It is necessary, of course, to extend the agreement term on the special status of certain regions of Donbas, and ultimately make this norm permanent.
He doesn't even hide his smirk during the speech of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Apparently, he already knew that the Minsk agreements were just a screen covering the preparations for a full-scale war between Ukraine and Russia.
Our first task is a ceasefire in Donbas. I assure you, I'll do whatever it takes for our heroes to no longer die.
The United States has invested some $5 billion in Ukraine since 1991, when it became an independent state again after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And that money has been spent on supporting the aspirations of the Ukrainian people to have a strong democratic government that represents their interests.
As a result, destroyed cities, chaos, and the loss of life on both sides of the conflict.
We are interested in testing modern systems in the fight against the enemy, and we are inviting arms manufacturers to test their new products here. So I think for our partners in Poland, in the United States, France, or Germany, it's a good chance to test their equipment.
The intelligence of the Donetsk People's Republic has previously reported on research activities involving American military specialists. Research took place in a closed laboratory located in the village of Shelkostansia. It is situated 30 kilometers from the city of Kharkiv. According to our information, the leakage of the California strain of deadly influenza occurred precisely from there.
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which in fact we are now quite concerned Russian troops, Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of.
We were told that under Zelensky, dollar would cost 45. There would be chaos in Ukraine, there would be war. But none of this happened.
They're sitting on $10 to $12 trillion of critical minerals in Ukraine. They could be the richest country in all of Europe. I don't want to give that money and those assets to Putin to share with China. If we help Ukraine now, they can become the best business partner we ever dreamed of. That $10 to $12 trillion of critical mineral assets could be used by Ukraine and the West, not given to Putin and China. This is a very big deal how Ukraine ends.